Chapter 6. Chase was in good spirits when he waltzed through the front door. He had forgotten about all his troubles thanks to the amazing movie he and Jesse had watched. He had been at the edge of his seat throughout the whole movie wondering who was the serial killer and when he'd strike again. The climactic ending hadn't disappointed. There were rumors the production company would soon start filming a sequel. He couldn't wait for it to come out. After the movie ended, Jesse and he had gone to have burgers and fries at the deli nearby. Jesse had been a blast. His jokes were on the mark, making Chase laugh so hard and for so long, his abs and cheeks were sore. As he shut the door and headed toward the staircase, he heard his mom's voice. "Chase, is that you?" "Yeah, Mom," he shouted back. "Can you come to the kitchen, please?" "Sure," he replied as he made a detour heading toward her voice. "What is it you want?" His mother and Aunt Amara sat at the table when he entered the room. He grinned widely, happy to see his aunt. "Aunt Amara, what a nice surprise to see you here." He walked over to her and kissed her cheek. "What are you doing here? Is everything all right?" She laughed. "Why do you ask? You make it sound like I only come to visit when something is wrong." Growing up, Aunt Amara used to live with them. While his mother worked, Aunt Amara stayed at home and helped take care of Chase. She was a freelance editor and writer who worked remotely, so it was easy for her to look after him while she worked. Aunt Amara was like a second mother to him, who loved to spoil him. Thanks to her, he became an avid reader at a young age. She'd moved out 10 years ago when she was offered an in-house copy editing job in a prestigious New York-situated publishing house. She came to visit when she got time off in August for vacation and holidays. Today was June 25th, so why was she here? "No, I didn't mean that. Are you taking your summer vacation early?" he asked. "No, I'll be back in August for that. I still had bank days that I hadn't taken and decided to come spend some time with my baby sister and my favorite nephew." Chase snorted. "I'm your only nephew." Aunt Amara was Chase's only aunt on his mother's side. She had never married, nor had kids. She said she couldn't bear to have a son who would have to suffer the family curse. She patted the seat beside her. "Why don't you have a seat and enjoy some tea with your mother and me?" "All right." Chase twirled the chair so he could sit closer to her. His mother served him a cup of steaming tea in the imported fine china cup. "Your aunt was telling me about this retreat that you might be interested in attending." Frowning, confused, he asked, "Retreat? What retreat?" His aunt gazed at his mother while she spoke. "It's more like a sanctuary run by a coven." His jaw dropped. Did he hear correctly? A coven? Like in a witch's coven? She nodded, affirming it. "Yes, but they practice good magic, not black magic, like the witch that placed the curse on us." She took a deep breath and lowered her gaze when she said, "I've been discussing the curse with them. They say they'll try to break it." "You really think it's possible?" his mother asked with wide, hopeful eyes. "Yes, there are some very powerful witches in the coven. The word on the streets is one of the most powerful white witches in this part of the world is part of the coven. So this is our best chance." His spirit soared. This was music to his ears. Was it possible he could live a normal life? "There's a question they asked me that I couldn't answer." She looked directly into his eyes. "Have you started to see any signs of the change? You're approaching your 18th birthday, so you may have started to see signs." His mother's stare was so intense and scrutinizing, he felt it boring through him. He couldn't admit the truth. She'd freak out that he hadn't told her it had started. Diverting his gaze, he answered, "No, not yet." His aunt released the breath she'd apparently been holding. "That's good news. I'll call them and let them know. The sooner you see them, the better your chances are of breaking the curse. I hope you don't have any plans tomorrow, because we'll be heading out in the late morning to go see them." He shook his head. "No, I've got no plans." All he had to look forward to was sunbathing and then swimming. But he didn't have to do that tomorrow. He could do that any time during the summer. His soaring spirits sank soon after they had risen when a discouraging thought surfaced. Why did the witches ask if the change had commenced? Did that mean they could only break it if it hadn't? A niggling feeling told him that now that the change had started, all hope of breaking the curse had gone up in a puff of smoke.
Chapter 7. "I'm sorry," Brianna's mom said, giving her a sidelong glance before returning her attention back to the road. "Sorry for what?" Brianna pondered, not knowing what her mom meant. They had been discussing music just moments before. They had set out early this morning to make it to Beyond the Horizon before her meeting with Maggie, the coordinator. It had been nice to spend quality time with her mom like this. Her mother's workload had been overwhelming these past months. They hadn't had much time to chat for long hours like they'd done before when they lived in Toronto, Ontario. I'm sorry that I turned your whole life upside down when we decided to move here. I know the past year has been difficult for you, moving to a new city in a different province and changing schools. Even though we haven't discussed it much, I know you've had problems at the new school. I've seen how your marks have dropped somewhat, and it's been difficult socializing and making new friends. Brianna's mother only knew a small part of her struggles. Brianna never told her about the bullying. She didn't want her to worry and fuss. Her mom had a lot of stress because of work. She didn't need to worry about Brianna's problems as well. Besides, Brianna wasn't a kid anymore. She'd be an adult soon and had to deal with her problems on her own. If you want to change schools, it isn't too late. I've heard from friends at work that Stewart High School is science and art-focused. They've got numerous creative after-school programs I think you'd enjoy, one of which is photography. Taking pictures was one of Brianna's passions. She was constantly using the camera app on her phone, but not to take selfies. What interested her was taking pictures of light and shadow and their balance in the world around her. The majority of the pictures she'd taken were of buildings and how shadow and light enhanced their architectural design. But the thought of having to uproot herself again didn't appeal to Brianna. She had only 1 year left before she graduated. Besides, how did she know if there weren't other bullies like Serafina and Cynthia at that school? Yes, it was true her marks had dropped this past year. But it was only because the course's curriculums were different from her old school. It had taken Brianna months to catch up. In her last term, though, her marks had jumped considerably. They'd been at par with what she'd gotten last year. The caption, "Learn to embrace your grace and confidence at beyond the horizon," she'd read on the brochure a few days ago scrolled through her mind's eye just then. It was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow Brianna had sought her whole life. The day she was no longer klutzy, awkward, or considered a freak was what she wished for. Could the retreat deliver on that promise? She hoped it did. All her problems would just disappear, then she'd no longer be seen as an outsider and would be accepted by her peers. She doubted she'd ever be close friends with Cynthia and Serafina. They'd most probably be enemies for life. But that was okay. She had no desire to mingle with the mean and snobby crowd in school. Just the ones who embraced diversity and individualism. If Beyond the Horizon would offer her the help she needed, then there was no need to change schools. Grinning, she shook her head. No, it's okay, Mom. Yeah, this year was rough. It was a big change, but something tells me it will be different come the fall. Things will be better.